Welcome back to Let's Talk Race in Ireland. I'm your host, Harrison Paul. Today in the UK, there was a first political debate between the Labour Party and the Conservative Party. It was Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer. For anybody who doesn't know, these are the leaders of their party. Rishi Sunak, who is, originally, if I can say, an Indian man, and Keir Starmer, who is apparently a Welsh man, but basically a white British man. The debate was quite interesting. I really did see so many flaws in Keir Starmer. And I honestly think that if Keir Starmer was, let's say, a black person or a brown person, I don't think anybody would be debating on whether or not they're going to vote on him, no matter how bad the Tories did. And actually, with that, also that saying that, I honestly think that if Rishi Sunak was a white man, I think if Rishi Sunak was Boris Johnson, although I do believe the country is tired of the Conservative Party, white or black, I still believe that we would have seen, the sense that Rishi Sunak managed to talk in that. Now, I think it's fair for us to also interject that Rishi Sunak only took over the country when it already had been broken by the rest of the party. And this is, really, indicative to what we go through as black people, right? Our skills, they show every single time. And then the minute they need us, the minute they feel as if, there's no other answer, they'll call on the black person, the one who will do the extra shift or who will do the dirty work or who has the brains to do it, right? And I feel like that's what happened with the Conservative Party. They called upon Rishi when they understood that, listen, guys, after Johnson, after Liz Truss, we have messed everything up and we don't have much chances left. And they looked amongst themselves, and I don't think anybody was actually brave enough to step up and decide to lead the country after all the mess that was made and take the hits and take the lashings. But Rishi Sunak trusted his capacity, but unfortunately, his capacity was never going to be the main judgment that he would receive. Everything is always seen through the lens of your race, through the lens of the narrative that are put on black and brown people. So that's the first point that I actually came to understand, that I felt very bad for Rishi because I felt like it is actually ludicrous that we're actually pairing these two up against each other. And had this been, people of different races, I think it would be a landslide performance. And of course, this is not me, like I said before, completely ignoring the past 14 years of what, the Conservative Tory Party has done. But it's just taking into consideration how bad Sir Keir Starmer has done, right? And that's just my first point on that. And it makes me actually think of, what's his name? Vivek Ramaswamy. I think Vivek Ramaswamy also is a man who's brilliant, filled with brilliance, right? I think he's very clever, but I also think that, cleverness and wisdom are two different things, right? I definitely think that wisdom, when cleverness crosses over into wisdom, it is now involved with your character, right? I think you can be really clever, you can go to school, you can do all these things. I think cleverness turns into wisdom when you've also built the character in terms of knowledge, and you also have this, I guess, depth to you, and this ideology towards life, that you stand on regardless of who you are in the room with, that gives you that this guy is a wise person badge. And I think if Rishi and if people like Vivek Ramaswamy were able to have that final icing on the cake, I think they'd be even more brilliant than they are. But the paradox of it all is that they wouldn't get on with the very people who they're trying to get on with, who they're trying to represent. Because those people want you to be, stupid. They don't want you to be awake. They don't want you to. So you play the role. I really think Rishi's better than Vivek, because something in me tells me Rishi knows he goes to work every morning, right? I feel that off of him. I feel, if anything, I don't believe that he believes anything that he says. Actually, I have a clip here of him saying something quite crazy. I'm going to play it for you guys to see it.
They want us to doubt ourselves, to doubt each other, to doubt our country's history and achievements. They want us to accept a moral equivalence between Britain and some of the most despicable regimes in the world. They want us to believe that our country, and the West more generally, is solely responsible for the world's ills, and that we, along with our allies, are the problem. In short, they want to destroy our confidence and hope. We must not allow that to happen. When these groups claim that Britain is and has been on the wrong side of history, we should reject it and reject it again. No country is perfect, but I am enormously proud of the good that our country has done. Our place in history is defined by the sacrifices our people have made in the service of their own freedom and that of others.
But yes, statements like this, I don't generally believe that Rishi actually believes these statements. I believe that Rishi is smart enough to know that he goes to work in the morning, but Vivek, there's something about him where I believe that this guy wants to believe this perfect story. And in fact, that's why he went on the, PBD podcast and went to actually share his heartbreak of like, oh, I came to the realization of how racist America was. And I'm actually going to play that for you guys so you can see it.
On one end, how many people you think are like, if you were to say of the voters block, what percentage of the voter block agrees with her?
So say in the Republican primary?
In the Republican primary to say, you know what, I'm not going to, even if it's 1%, 2%, 3%, what do you think it is?
So I will tell you this with confidence. It is a lot higher than I believed it was a year ago.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, as you can see here, he came to that realization. I don't think Rishi would be shocked if the likes were ever to happen to him. In many ways, even when you see him during this debate, he almost knew that it was out of his hands, but he was just giving one last kick of a dying horse to say, listen, guys, I understand this Conservative Party has messed things up. I'm here. I have a plan. I have ideas. I'm quite intelligent. And I think I can fix this. You either give up on me and you choose another party and start all over again. And, like I said, had he been in a different skin, I really do think if it was a different Boris or it was someone else like this with the same confidence, same thing, I do think there'd be a level of trust that the public would have. And then that takes me to the next, part of this discussion, which is the Donald Trump side. And in this, actually, they touched on Donald Trump and said, despite Donald Trump being a convicted felon, would you still, sit at a table with him? Would you still, continue on that relationship with America? And this is what they had to say.
Quick fire question for you from Stephen from West Sussex, who sent us a question and asked, just very quickly, a very brief answer from both of you. Would convicted criminal Donald Trump be someone you as Prime Minister would want a special relationship with? Keir Starmer.
If he's elected president of the US, then we will deal with him. It's up to the people in the US to decide who they want as their president. And the special
even if he's a criminal.
The special relationship transcends whoever fills the post of Prime Minister and President because it's such an important, strong relationship.
Thank you. Rishi Sunak.
Yes, because having a strong relationship with our closest partner and ally in the United States is critical for keeping everyone in our country safe.
Thank you for those brief answers.
So what does that tell us, brothers and sisters? There is so much that I learn from our adversary or adversaries. Their level of self-determination, I wouldn't call it self-determination, but they choose them every single time. Why do I have the feeling that if a black man was a convicted felon, regardless of the circumstances, why do I feel like it wouldn't be the same answer? When I think of politics, as I'm getting into politics now, I was more into, the psychology of the black man. Of course, when you go down that road, you begin to get into politics. And I'm realizing that this is like the kids on the playground. Who is cool with who? Who decides who's cool? Who decides who's not cool? And selective uproar, selective, morals. And I get so frustrated, not with the system in itself, but with my African brothers and sisters who think that if you come with genuine value, you can shift the pyramid, you can shift the system and how it operates. Although down the line, that is the case, further down the process. But it all begins with the psychology of human life, the way we think and the way we operate. And when I think about how Trump found himself in this 34 counts convicted guilty and will still manage to go on to be the president of the United States, very much may be, it makes me understand that the Europeans or the Westerners have a self-love for themselves where they're able to give themselves 9 lives. Whereas we as Black and brown people, a lot of the times, we have internalized this very impatient and quick to box, punish and to banish. We've taken this and we have now internalized it and put it on each other. Another angle I'll give you for this, for example, I was saying to my mother, I have to give it to someone like Piers Morgan. He goes down, he's like whack-a-mole, goes down, comes back up, whack-a-mole, goes down. And she goes, yeah, I don't know. My mother's been around long enough to remember Piers for quite some time. And she said, Harrison, I don't know if that's coming from the fact that he is a white man. He is able to bounce back that many times and make that many mistakes. He is able to be someone so flawed and come back. Would a Black man have that, leeway to be able to come back in the public eye and be a voice that people actually find somewhat credible? Had it been a Black man with so much mistakes and a long history of mistakes like Piers Morgan. And we say the same for Donald Trump. And I don't blame white people for being like this, nor am I crying about white people for being like this. In fact, I just keep thinking about conversations. I always think about conversations that I had with brothers. And one of the brothers I had a conversation with, he kept saying, it's money. It's this British guy. It's money. It's money. It's a Black guy. It's not all. And that's why we think once we get our money up, it's like we just have to get capital. No, but I'm trying to make people see let's strip this back to the playground. That's how I'm seeing it. It's like, I even growing up in Ireland, obviously there was a status system, on who was cool, who was hot, who was not. And it I could almost see the world we live in, and it reflects in the playground I grew up in the system of how things work. There were a lot of people who weren't born into wealth that managed to make themselves the most influential voices amongst the people who probably, could afford the best shoes and afford the newest thing and the newest that. But they would have a way about them, and then mixed with the tribalism that would happen there, where he manages to lead that crowd and decide, where the tide would go. And I see that in the world we live in. I see that in the politics. I see that. I don't think it's solely money. I think then money is a result of that, because of this popularity thing that we have, because of this mentality, because of the way social, is how it's socially structured. Then that's where the money goes. My lady was showing me a picture of the Aborigines, and she'll show me like, wow, they look like us. It's so strange. They look like us, but they're not us. But they've got flowy hair and stuff like that. And they go, and I was like, they're our cousins. I said, she goes, you think so? I said, they're definitely our cousins. I would call them our cousins because you can definitely check the DNA, and they're cousins by a literal a relation. We relate in the fact that our skin has been demonized, our texture, our tone, skin tone has been demonized. And this popularity, right? This popularity contest, I'm going to trivialize it and call it a popularity contest. And to prove that to you, in this next clip I'm going to play for you, I'm going to play another real takeaway from this debate. And I'm going to show you how they were asked about, the Jews and the Zionists, should I say. They were asked about the situation in Gaza and how they would deal with it. And I want you to take notice to how the presenter literally, I would call it like a mini meltdown in the way she tries to. Have you ever been in the car with somebody and they forgot to come off, they're on the highway and they forgot to come off the next exit, and then they risk your life by like cutting across like 5 different lanes so they can make that exit, and you're thinking, whoa, bro, like, thanks for making me think I was going to lose my life there. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to get off here. And it quickly goes across 5 different lanes. That's the best way to explain this. This is what I felt. Check this out.
Going to turn now to our 4th question from Omer from Manchester. Omer.
Thank you. I'm worried about the UK's lack of leadership on the world stage. I want our PM to be strong enough to take a stand even when it's hard. So what should happen next to stop these awful scenes we're seeing in Gaza?
Thank you very much indeed for that question, Omer. And that question there, it has a wide range to it, but very specifically, it is about the Hamas terrorist atrocities of October the 7th and then what unfolded after, the scenes of which we see on our television news every evening. So I'd like you both, please, to address that particular situation. A lot of people have been very uncomfortable with the stance that both of you have taken on this. How would you respond? First to Keir Starmer.
Call me an overanalyzer. If you watch the whole debate, she did really well, right? She was treating grown men like small boys, and her chest was high and her head was high, and she was saying, you stop talking, you keep talking. She was being a very good, host. And this moment, I watched her, even when you watch her the way she kind of has her head down, like, what do you think? I watched her body language crumple and shrink because she herself even had shame. The way she took his question, warped it to completely what he was not saying in order to make the cut of what they needed to make. They couldn't, she almost fought for her life in that moment to a place where it worked against her own conscience. It worked against her own conscience. She knew that is not what he said, and she knew that is not what she should have made the question about. She knew it was not an October 7th question. But in order to please the people on the playground, you could have at least allowed the question to be what the question was about. When I watch the degree in which people will go not to offend, when I watch the degree they will go, and I have brothers tell me it's about money. This is past money. This has gotten into the minds of the people. This is an indoctrination. This is an indoctrination, my brothers and sisters. I'm thinking, and I sit there and I ask myself, what will it take from the community for them, anytime racism comes up like that, where someone will literally make a fool of themselves, like I said, come off the highway in such a dangerous way just to make the cut, to make that exit, because they know playing on black people's name might just mess up your life. This does not start with money. Most of the people I talk to in our community, I'm telling you now, they do not have the mentality to back our people in such a way that even if the money was in their pockets, they apply pressure on people like her, like, don't you dare make that mistake. If you want to see the light of day tomorrow, don't you dare make that mistake on live television tomorrow. I don't care how silly it makes you look. I don't care whatever. You grab the mic and you ambush that and you make sure you change that statement that goes completely against your morals. And you think that's just some money, huh? That is somebody, a people who know how to control the mind. That is a people who know how to control the mind. They control the minds. This is what patrioticness does. It reminds me of how you can't even come to British people, older British people anyway, and tell them what Winston Churchill did was wrong. In here, even Sir Keir Starmer, the one who's supposed to be liberal, actually quoted Churchill. Do you think we'll be able to quote our quote-unquote terrorists? People who terrorized the West? The only reason now we can even mention Nelson Mandela is because he no longer was the man he came out of jail. He was not the man he came out. The man who went in was not the man who came out. Would we still be allowed to hold Nelson Mandela if he maintained and stayed the same way he was at the top when he went into prison? I wish my brothers and sisters could understand this is not about money. When I talk to black brothers and sisters, I do not see a people that if you put $50 billion in their pockets each, they will create and make sure TV stations all sound like this and indoctrinate a TV station, indoctrinate a staff, and make sure everything is well vetted. All channels, everyone who hosts the channels, everyone who sits on channels, everyone who sits on news channels, all politicians. Right here you have the labor and you have the conservative. You have the conservative and the liberal, if you would call them. And none of them, one of them is supposed to be the more, liberal. Both of them sounding the same. Why? Because when it comes to the topic of the Jews, look what they have done. And I'll end on this, brothers and sisters. I am understanding the psychology. Yes, white people have not been hoodwinked, have not been deteriorated by oppression. They know how to set a standard for themselves. And they know if society wants to push back on that standard, you push back. You don't lighten the sentence. You don't lighten the load. And this is why I'm so sick of them saying, black people say to me, well, if you focus on it, I don't give it energy. I don't focus on it. That's not how the Jews accomplish what they've accomplished. Do you think she's doing this and making a U-turn off the highway like that because the Jews don't focus on it? If the Jews didn't focus on it, she would take the question how it came to her and not worry about it tomorrow morning. And then this is how money is then decided where money then drifts into these areas. Money drifts into these hands. Power continue to be passed around and drifts in these hands. When black people always say, no, I can take more. I can take a beating. I can keep my mouth shut. I can keep going. I can keep my mouth shut and keep going. Or watch how much I can take and watch how I can keep going. It's not a competition to show how much you can take and keep going. That's what black people think it is. They think this life is a competition of how much you can take, how much rubbish you can take, and keep going. That's literally what we think it is. Whereas now they have even normalized talking about immigration, and we know immigration. We know immigration. We know what that topic is about. It's about the fact that the West has economic supremacy, and the history has everything to do with that, and we don't care if history has anything to do with that, but we just want to eat the fruits of that without having to answer to anybody or share with anybody. So let's put a cap on immigration, and no one is going to call them up on why the world works like this, why wealth is one-sided, why people kill themselves to get on a boat to come here. It's the way history unfolded. It's the fact that we think colonization is an old thing and we don't know what neocolonialism is. It's the fact that we think Nigeria is actually belonging to Nigeria. It belongs to the British. The oil, the resources, multinationals like Shell. My goodness, brothers and sisters. Excuse me, hay fever is really trying to come at me this season. But I'll end on that. It is not about a competition of how much you can take. Should be a competition on what? That's what I'm doing right now. What? The Jewish man had this white lady fighting for her life. In the middle of a debate, she was doing her job. She was doing great. Her chest was high. If you watch the whole thing, she was feeling great. And she had to go and just scur the car as quick as possible if she wanted to save herself. What makes someone do that? It's not money. It starts with a mindset, a culture. And then when this mindset happens, money flows there. And what has been our detriment, brothers and sisters, is the slave mentality. Look how much whips I can take and keep going and not focus on what you do to me has become our thing. Do you respect a woman who can show you how much licks she can take and not focus on the fact you've been cheating on her? I'm going to say this to the man who tell me don't focus. Do you respect the woman who show you how much licks she can take and say, I don't focus on his cheating? I don't go through his phone? Or who do you want? You want the beautiful woman who doesn't take rubbish, isn't it? You want the beautiful woman who knows what she has to offer and she gonna not let you get an inch. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe.
And I'm on a mission for you.